Wet weather to western Scotland at the moment. That weather front is fizzling out as it sinks southwards, but nevertheless bringing some light rain and drizzle to southern Scotland and Northern Ireland by dawn. Most of England and Wales dry, and in the south, some frost where we keep clear skies and some thick fog patches as well. Likely to be pretty dense for Saturday morning. Temperatures down below freezing here, even in towns and cities, and some rural spots could be well below. Not as cold further north, because we've got more cloud. A grey start to the weekend, a little bit of light rain over the far north of England. And through the day, we could see some light rain and drizzle at times for northwest England and the north coast of Wales. But elsewhere, most places dry. Quite cloudy, some brightness in the southeast. Certainly some sunny spells developing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. 6, 7, 8 degrees Celsius. So generally a touch colder than today. Through Saturday evening, again, most places dry. If we keep some clear skies, there could be some pockets of frost and fog, but most areas will stay cloudy, apart from a bit of drizzle here and there. Most places will be dry. And then into Sunday, we start, well, most places a touch above freezing. But as I said, where we keep some clear skies, there could be a little bit of frost and fog. That may take a while to clear. Grey, drab day across southern parts of Wales and the Midlands. And another weather front will bring some more wet and increasingly windy weather, initially to the far northwest of Scotland, but that rain swinging into central Scotland and Northern Ireland by the end of the afternoon. So turning wet and windy here, but it will be a milder day. Temperatures generally a couple of degrees higher than on Saturday, peaking at 8, 9, maybe 10 or 11 Celsius in one or two places.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm identifying as Laurence Fox tonight because we can now, evidently. Yet they've let me back in the studio. It's Friday night, so brace yourself. Tonight, we'll be discussing how the trust between the police and women is an all-time low, with the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, estimating 2 to 3 officers a week will appear in court facing charges including sexual violence against women and girls. They are busy policing us and not looking within their own ranks, aren't they? Right, how did we get here? Speaking of law and order, Nicola Sturgeon, yes, her again, had a humiliating climb down after trans prisoner convicted rapist Isla, yeah right, of course her name's Isla, Brighton has finally been sent to a men's prison. Is sense finally returning to the people? Then, talking of sense, Matt Hancock has kept his pledge to donate a portion of his I'm a Celebrity fee to charity. all 3% of it, totaling £10,000 of his 220 grand. Should he have donated more? Did he raise much awareness for, what was he was talking, dyslexia, that's what he was talking about. Or, as we keep being told, are MPs' money matters their own business? No. Spoiler. And finally, do you keep your ketchup in the fridge or the cupboard? Stick around for our end of show quiz, which may involve a banana and will definitely involve Prosecco. There you go. So, right, get everyone involved and no cheating at home, right? OK, this is my fun part of the show. And don't forget, most importantly, I want to hear from you. Send your views my way at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at Dawn Neeson. That's all coming up after the headlines with, I think, checking the lovely Tatiana.
Dawn, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The Chancellor has insisted the best tax cut for the United Kingdom is to cut inflation. That's as he sets out his long-term plans for growing the economy. With inflation close to a 40-year high, Jeremy Hunt has reiterated the government's pledge to halve it this year. He's promised to use Brexit freedoms to boost growth and reverse what he calls a declinism attitude towards the economy. Well, Mr Hunt also confirmed today HS2 will run to central London's Euston station as planned. It follows reports the government was planning to scale back this leg of the project, instead terminating in a West London suburb. The rail link is costing over £44.6 billion, but supporting 22,000 jobs. Despite increasing costs due to soaring inflation, the Chancellor says it is a priority. The chair of an independent review into an NHS trust maternity care says hundreds of families and staff have raised concerns after it was fined £800,000 admitting failings in the care of a baby who died 23 minutes after birth. Nottingham University Hospitals Trust had their £1.2 million fine reduced after pleading guilty to providing unsafe care. It's the highest fine ever issued for failings in maternity care. Winter Sophia Andrews died in 2019 at the Queen's Medical Centre. Her mother, Sarah, says no financial penalty will bring her daughter back. A man has died after being crushed by a telescopic pop-up urinal in central London. Emergency services were called to the scene at Cambridge Circus in West London just after 1 o'clock this afternoon. A London Fire Brigade spokesman say the man had been trapped below street level. Despite efforts by the services to rescue him, the maintenance worker died at the scene. A firefighter who was critically injured while tackling a blaze at a former department store in Scotland has died. Police say 38-year-old Barry Martin, who'd remained in a critical condition in hospital, has died at the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh. He was one of 5 firefighters taken to hospital following the incident. The 4 others have all since been discharged. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has described his death as a terrible tragedy. A British teenager whose far-right videos influenced the gunman in an American mass shooting has been sentenced to 11.5 years. Daniel Harris from Derbyshire posted extremist videos calling for what he called the total extermination of subhumans. The videos were then shared by Peyton Gendron, who shot dead 10 people at a supermarket in Buffalo in New York. Manchester Crown Court heard the videos were also linked to Anderson Lee Aldridge, the only suspect in a shooting at a gay bar in Colorado. The King and Queen Consort have lit candles at Buckingham Palace to mark Holocaust Memorial Day today. King Charles and Camilla spoke with Dr. Martin Stern, who survived a Nazi concentration camp during the Second World War. They also met Amuna Adam, a survivor of genocide in Darfur in Western Sudan. Today marks 78 years since Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi death camp, was liberated, a day to remember all victims of genocide around the world. OK, some breaking news to bring you just in, and 5 people have died following a shooting in a synagogue in Jerusalem. Israel's ambulance service said 10 people were wounded in that shooting. Police described it as a terror attack, but we'll bring you more on that story as we get it. TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Dawn.
Well, hello, a lovely Friday evening. Once again, folks, we've made it. Time to put the feet up, treat yourself to a nice cuppa and look forward to a fabulous weekend. Well, actually, you might be needing something slightly stronger tonight because we're talking sex. Or rather, lack of it. No, not the fun stuff that stops as soon as you taste wedding cake. Evening, darling. But the biological stuff. You know, the old-fashioned thing of men having penises, women having wombs and babies being born. Old school. It's pretty much worked since Adam and Eve got a bit naughty with the Granny Smith, but these days even the birds and the bees don't know whether they're coming or going. Though I have to admit, I never quite got the whole birds and bees thing. I mean, how does that even work? It's not physically possible. In any case, look, what shouldn't be physically possible, of course, is that a convicted male rapist was even considered suitable to be housed in a woman's prison. We are, of course, talking the incredible story of a bloke called Adam Graham, who suddenly decided he was a she during his court case for violently attacking two vulnerable women. Adam stuck on a terrible wig, got his nails done and wore a lot of pink. And I do mean a lot of pink. Mate, the only female who wears that much pink is bloody Barbie, OK? Just helping out here. Any case, as this happened in Scotland, our chick with a penis, sorry, it was tempting, was under Nicola Sturgeon's Gender Reform Act taken on his word and sent to a female-only prison. I mean, what the actual hell have we become where a dangerous, fully male-bodied bloke is allowed anywhere near vulnerable women, let alone locked up with them? It's utter balls, and pun very much intended there. Any case, after a huge public outcry led by amazing female rights campaigners like J.K. Rowling, Adam Isla was packed off to a male prison instead. And I'm thinking it won't now be too long before the shaven-headed, tattooed, muscular thug realises he's just an ordinary pink-hating bloke after all. The amazing thing about all of this madness is that it's a woman, a very cranky Nicola Sturgeon, behind a bill that actually puts both biological and trans women at risk. Sturgeon's screeching U-turn yesterday, where she finally admitted Brighton shouldn't be in a female prison, thanks Nikki, leaves her entire gender law in disarray. On one hand, she evidently believes that, without any medical backup, any of us can simply say we're a different gender, and legally we are. Ergo, our racist chum has every right to be in a woman's jail. Yet, on the other hand, Nicola now says no rapist, and legally it is only men who can rape us, you need a penis, by the way, should be allowed into a woman's prison. I mean, it's just a horrible, sorry and dangerous mess. Most of us surely understand by now there's a difference between biological sex and gender. Biological women do not have penises. Biological men do not have periods or cervixes. Those who feel they have been born in the wrong body and want to transition should be supported medically and legally, not, and this is an important point, used as a woke political football by virtue-signalling politicians who have trouble with their elbows and their bottoms, tempting that was, let alone willies and vaginas. Which brings us very neatly onto the Labour Party, led by a man who infamously can't define 50% of the population. Women's rights campaigner and Labour MP Rosie Duffield has compared the party's attitude to women as like being in an abusive relationship. And who can forget the male MPs who shouted, gesticulated and literally hissed at Rosie when debating trans rights versus women's rights in the House of Commons last week. Look, there is no versus, by the way. It's not a game of top trumps, is it? All our rights are important and equal. Now, the fact that the men involved in that public bullying display of misogyny are almost proud of their behaviour just belies belief. And in that bastion of democracy, the mother of all parliaments, no less, or maybe, as Sir Keir Starmer and Nicola Sturgeon would have it, the birth giver of all parliaments. Right. Before all of that, though, I'm asking you, should trans prisoners, trans either way, by the way, have separate facilities? Email me at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews. To me, it seemed to make perfect sense that a male rapist would not be sent to a female prison. I mean, it is common sense at the end of the day, a dying art form. After identified as a woman, only he was convicted of a second rape. For people with genuine gender dysmorphia, teeth in, Dawn, this surely flies in the face of everything they have to endure. And for women locked in a prison, how are they to feel safe knowing a man is locked in there with them? For asking these questions and challenging the establishment people are labelled transphobes. Surely the ludiest case of Isla/Adam should be a wake-up call for everybody on both sides of the argument and really question the motives of some of these people. At least in this case, sense has prevailed and Bryson is now packing his little pink suitcase, popping his nails back on and shuffle over to the boys' room. Now, joining me I'm absolutely thrilled to have him on. A great mate and very, very good on the subject is senior reporter of The Eye, Benjamin Butterworth. Benjamin, thank you so much for coming on today. Now, you are a very vocal and very balanced supporter of LGBTQ+ rights. And I know this is a subject close to your heart as well, so I was very keen to talk to you about it because you're one of the few people that can have this debate without actually getting hysterical about it. So what do you...
Famous last words.
Yeah, right, thanks. You're not helping already. So, Benjamin, what do you make of what's happened in Scotland today with this rapist actually initially going to a woman's prison?
I mean, there were parts of your monologue that I agreed with, like the idea that women's rights and trans rights are in competition. Yeah, exactly. Maybe I've got a bit of the latest strain of COVID. You know, those are things that we should recognise. Now, what's odd is that the Equalities Act, which governs these sorts of things, that was introduced by Harriet Harman and Labour in 2010, always said that there can be sex-based exceptions to things like this question. And so it was already the law, and it wasn't the first time this had ever cropped up, that a person who was clearly a threat to females shouldn't be in a women's prison. And so it was very much Nicola Sturgeon's interpretation to try and change that. The law already made allowances for that. But what I really hate is that we constantly hear these stories about this tiny god-awful but tiny number of transgender people who've done crimes, some of them sexual crimes like this person. And what other group in society do we try to judge the rights and perception of that whole group based on the prisoners among them?
But I'm not saying that, Benjamin. I mean, I fully accept that, you know, this is a predatory male, OK, who suddenly decided... Do you actually believe he's genuinely transgender, for a start?
I mean, you know, if he's been assessed and that's what the conclusion they came to, then yes, I think you should take a person at their word. But that is different to saying that the threat to another woman outweighs that, which it does, right? But I would just... And I take that view, but I would put a point that this isn't a straightforward question because there is a thing called lesbians or bisexual women.
Yeah,
now,
of course.
If they have sexually assaulted another woman, what do you do with them? Because actually they're in the same category, but it's less newsworthy.
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, there are female sex attackers. They're not rapists, by the way, because women can't do that. But they are women, so they belong. Biological women belong in a biological female jail and biological men in a male jail. Surely that is common sense.
I mean, well, hang on. The question is, you know, Nicola Sturgeon introduced this thing, and what it said, the change that she proposed, was that at the moment you'd have to spend 2 years to get the legal recognition, and that changes now that it's 3 months. And so it doesn't change the way people are behaving in day-to-day life. So one of the suggestions that people take from this, when you talk about the prisons, and I think everyone, Yvette Cooper, Labour, has said this, that if you're a threat to women, then clearly it's not right that you're in women's prisons.
Not everybody has said that, by the way. Not everybody. There was a Labour MP who actually said the opposite.
Was that Lloyd Russell Moyle?
But there was a female, ironically, a female Labour MP, I can't remember what her name was now, who actually came out and said, no, if this person is identifying as a woman, they should be in a woman's jail. So it's not everyone that agrees with that. But carry on, sorry.
I've slightly lost my train of thought. But
easily done with me.
I've lost what I was saying. Forgive me, where was I? What was I saying?
You were telling me that Nicola Sturgeon's bill is...
Yeah, so this is the suggestion that you hear all the time, that somehow this is going to mean that people, male sex attackers, male potential rapists, are going to use transgender laws to go into women's changing rooms or women's public bathrooms in order to attack them. Now, that is where I have a serious issue, because the idea that male predators are putting a dress on and pretending to be a woman to attack women is nonsense. You know, David Carrick did not put a dress on, he put a police uniform on. Wayne Couzens didn't put a dress on, he put a police uniform on. Ian Huntley didn't put a dress on, he put a caretaker's uniform on.
Absolutely.
And just to finish my point, is that men who want to attack women, who are sex attackers, who are predatory by nature and intention, they don't pretend to be women, they pretend to be figures of authority like police police officer.
Absolutely, and that is a very fair point. I'm taking that, but this week we were told this would not happen, OK? We were told that trans women would not, or predatory men rather, would not use Nicola Sturgeon's bill to access vulnerable women. And that is patently not true. We have one example already. I mean, there are probably more. This is a person called Katie Dolowoski who covertly filmed a 12-year-old and attempted to rape a 10-year-old, both offences committed in a woman's public bathrooms whilst wearing female clothing. So this is a male paedophile dressed as a woman and abusing 2 children who will probably never get over that.
But that obviously was before this law change, and so this law change has nothing to do with that, right?
But it's making it easier. But this happened before the law change. Now, you are absolutely right. But before the law change, you needed medical advice and medical support.
You didn't, because if that's the case, tell me, when was the last time you were asked for a birth certificate to go to the loo in public?
Well, I've never been asked to go for a birth certificate to go to the loo.
Right.
But that's not the point.
No,
but now,
it is the point.
No, the point
it is the point because the idea that this is going to stop someone who wished to do that is nonsense. Because no one's asked for their ID to go to the loo or the changing room.
But this is being used by predatory men to access vulnerable women, and we are not saying that trans women are a danger to women, because of course they are not. And I think the situation we are now is more divisive, and it's causing more problems for trans women who just want to quietly get on with their lives. So why do we have to make it easier for predatory men, who you quite rightly said use positions of authority to access vulnerable women? Why do we give them another opportunity to go so? I mean, Benjamin, Scottish men could now say, I'm a woman. After 3 months, they can legally say they are a woman and access women's spaces.
But they can already, look, if they wanted to do that, they can already do that, because absolutely nobody has been asked for ID to go for a pee, OK? That's not how it works. And so the idea that this would change someone who wished to abuse that is nonsense. The idea
there are people already doing it, Benjamin.
But, you know, the truth is that the Gender Recognition Act, which is the certificate that can, you know, change legally your gender, that was passed in 2004-5. And so these laws have been in place for, what, 17, 18 years?
But not for 3 months without any medical backup or certificate at all.
But those people already had to, in order to get the certificate, you had to live in your chosen gender for 2 years. So there is no demonstrable change in this. It is just the point at which you're legally recognised. And what I would say is that the truth is this, and you'll know this because you're an outstanding journalist with a tabloid background.
You're not getting around me that way. You're not getting around me that way.
Let me say this, but you are of an age and of a level of experience that you remember the days, the 80s, when these kind of stories were written about gay men left, right and centre. When a gay man was a paedophile or an abuser, you would hear about it day in, day out to try and smear.
I have to... Oh, look, you're hanging around all night, aren't you? Because I'm coming back about that age quip for a start. So we have to leave you there, Benjamin, but you hang around. Right, women's spaces, sports and competitions have been coming under attack. Similar theme here going on, but now it seems the tide is turning. World Athletics are discussing introducing a new open category where intersex and trans athletes can compete against men, rather than being entered into women's events. Now, this is all linked into, obviously, the debate Benjamin and I have just been having. So joining me now to discuss this, and she is so brilliant on this, is Olympian and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davis. Sharon, there you are. Thank you so much for joining us and giving up Friday night.
Good evening, everybody in the studio.
Thank you for joining us. And I know it's granny time today for you, isn't it, as well? So we're taking you away from your grandchildren.
So we don't say granny, we say grandma.
Grandma. Nan.
Yes, it's my favourite day, Fridays.
Right, OK. So, but firstly, Sharon, quickly, what do you make of what's happened this week with the Scottish situation and this rapist?
My big problem with all of it is that I went up last year to give evidence because of this bill, for this bill, and we weren't allowed to speak. So when it was going to affect elite female athletes were not allowed into Hollywood to give evidence. The only people that were allowed to give evidence were trans activists, 2 men, to talk about women's sport. And this is my problem with the bill. It was that it was very selective who was given evidence. And there were people trying to warn that this was going to happen, and they weren't given a voice. So, you know, it's sad that we're in this situation. The Scottish MPs were given the opportunity to bring in clauses that would protect against sex predators, and they chose not to do that. So it's really sad that we've got to this place, but at long last, we are getting a spotlight onto something which a lot of women activists have been talking about for a long time, is there is a massive clash of rights. And in sport, without doubt, I've been talking about it now for 5 years. Physically, male and females are different. The difference in sport is anywhere between 10% and 160%. A male of equal weight hits 160% harder than a female. So in contact sports, it's incredibly dangerous. And that's just been ignored. The fact that we're not somehow entitled to equality, and there is no science. 17 peer-reviewed studies says that you cannot remove male puberty. The last one was in October of last year. That came out of Brazil, one of the biggest ones so far. And that showed after 14 years, they still hadn't removed the majority of male puberty advantage. So what you're asking women to do at the moment, what you're asking females to do at the moment, is go into a race knowing that transgender women have a biological advantage. What is the point to us having WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, that's supposed to stop people from cheating and having an advantage if we actually say to females, well, you're not entitled to a level playing field?
Sharon,
there's got to be better solutions. There's got to be.
Sharon, I just want to pick up on a couple of points you made there. You said sort of like, you were ignored when you went to Hollywood. Instead, they talk to men. And women's voices are being ignored in sport. Do you feel that women's voices now are increasingly being ignored in all areas, and that is suddenly more acceptable than it has been for a while?
Unfortunately, in sport, it's been very much a misogynistic environment anyway. Something like the IOC and committees didn't even have a woman on their committees until 1982. And even now, the people that they have on their committees come from the Middle East in most cases, or China. They don't come from the Western world where women have a voice and actually say, we have a problem with this, please do something about it. So, yes, it's still a very, very difficult. Sports like cycling, incredibly misogynistic, one of the worst offenders with regards to actually not listening to their female athletes at all. And it's really important that World Athletics polls its athletes, all of them, male and female, because if you go down to the tracks and you ask the guys and girls that are training, they will, without doubt, within every single one in there, including the coaches, say that they think that women's sport should be protected for the female sex, and there should be an open and inclusive classification for everybody else. Because I'm a big believer that sport is for everybody, but it needs to be fair for both sexes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, Sharon, and have a lovely weekend with those lovely grandchildren of yours. Thank you. Well, there you go. It's a huge debate, but coming up after the break, how can we trust to be put back into the police? And so that's back in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's going to get better.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us
Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We've got a nice cup of tea in front of you now. Right, now, 2 to 3 officers a week will face trial for crimes such as violence against women, according to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Mark Rowley. It comes after Met Officer David Carrick, yes, him, was convicted of 85 rapes and serious crimes. He was repeatedly reported to the force as a danger to women, and less than 2 years ago, Wayne Couzens was found guilty of kidnapping, raping and murdering Sarah Everard, a name that still sends shivers down women's spines, that poor girl. He used his position as an officer to capture her as she walked home. Now, with me more to talk more about this and what the police need to do to become safer and more appropriate, certainly towards women, but also men are involved. It's not safe for men either, is former Met Police Superintendent Nusrit Mehtab. Nusrit, thank you so much for joining us today, giving up a Friday night. Really appreciate it, because I think this is an incredible story to be talking about. I can't quite believe what I heard this week, that on every week there will be Met police officers going on trial for offences, and we basically need to get used to that. I mean, what is going on? What is going on in the Met? And I'm sure it's not just the Met as well, by the way.
No, can I just say that, you know, there's thousands of hard-working officers who join policing for the right reason, to do the right thing and serve their communities. But what we are seeing is quite horrific, and, you know, even I kind of take a step back and think, wow, where are we? And you're absolutely right. Mark Rowley, the Commissioner, has said that there will be, and we should get used to it. These are officers that go, you know, their offences came out at least 2.5 years, and they've been waiting to go to court. The criminal justice system has a backlog, so it's going to take time. But certainly the Met Police, I mean, there's 43 forces out there, so it's a pattern of behaviour that's seen across the forces, but it seems, because Met is one of the biggest forces, that it has more of an issue and there's more of a highlight on the Met. Now, unfortunately, this week we heard about the Safer Schools officer that admitted a child
an underage girl.
Yeah, and his offences predate 2019, some of the offences, and that means that actually vetting and recruitment failed because there is online recruitment. So he actually went through the whole process of being recruited, gone through vetting without a face-to-face interview. And so that shows in the Casey report and the HMIC report that each of the forces, there's no consistency. They all do things differently. Some forces will interview, some won't, and everybody has a different appetite for risk. And some forces will take on people that have convictions.
How has it got to this state of affairs? Surely women should feel safe on the streets, should feel safe with a police officer. And yet, obviously, as we all know from what happened to Sarah Everard, he used his authority to murder that woman. So how have we got to this stage? I don't understand what has gone so horribly wrong.
Well, I would say a number of things. Poor leadership, because, you know, it starts with leadership. And particularly in the Metropolitan Police Service, there are cases across the forces, but I think what we're hearing is in the Met. So there's poor leadership. They're good operational leaders, but they're not good at managing risk and managing people. Vetting is an issue, and I think that's been identified over and over again in the Casey and the HMIC report. So vetting, recruitment and dropping of standards.
And What can we do about it? I mean, obviously we are now being warned that we're going to have this endless parade of police officers actually on all sorts of hideous charges. What can they do about it? What can the Met and other forces around the country do about this?
Well, it needs to be a cleansing, a detox process, and Mark Rowley has taken over, but obviously his hands are tied to a certain extent because the Met is in special measures. Yeah. However, he's got this new turnaround plan, and in that plan, he sets out his priorities. It's a good, solid policing plan, more trust, less crime, higher standards. That's the strap line, and then there's 9 priorities which he's going to look at. It's a really good, solid policing plan, but I think what it's missed is tackling that culture because there's a big cultural problem here, and that's been allowed to fester.
Because this is one of the reasons you left the Met, wasn't it? Misogyny within the force. So you're not surprised by anything you're seeing happening at the moment?
No, I'm absolutely not surprised. And the misconduct process, the grievance process, and you know what, Dawn? There isn't a safe space for whistleblowers. So when people do come forward, they should be listened to. And I made a number of internal complaints regarding misogyny, regarding racism, but there was no safe space for me. And actually, they didn't protect me. So when you've exhausted all the systems and processes, you don't have a choice, but you either sit and you actually think, OK, I'll accept what's going on, or you take the choice to leave. So I did. So what I'd like to see, because moving forward, is safer space for people that come forward. Yes. Because, you know, with David Carrick, you've mentioned 85 crimes. Now, his colleagues gave him a name, which, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on there.
Yes, of course.
Bastard Dave.
And because the clue's in the nickname doesn't sound like he's making a good copper.
Yeah, but he mean and cruel. So what led them to believe that he was mean and cruel? And why did they not actually do something about it? That's because the culture allows the silent majority protect. So what we need is a real safe space for whistleblowers. Colleagues feel empowered to come forward. That's how trust and confidence will be gained. Otherwise, it's going to be a downward spiral. And policing is by consent. And so if the public don't consent to policing, that means that policing legitimacy is at stake itself.
Again, the whole thing just crashes around. Just quickly, what was the worst example you came across personally of misogyny within the Met?
Well, it's actually ingrained in the system, isn't it? It's in the DNA. Promotion. Women are not given promotion. Just the sexual
ironically, because it was run by a woman at the time.
Yeah.
Cressida Dick.
Well, yeah. And that, you know, you've got to ask yourself what actually happened there. But I think the whole thing, I mean, the legacy, you know, we're focusing on Mark Rowley and what's he going to do. But actually, let's look at what happened, because Cressida Dick was there for 5 years. And a lot of these things were allowed, the systems and processes that were broken weren't fixed. So, you know, she created her own clique. And I think there was too much inward looking, not outward looking. Mark Rowley has said he's going to be ruthless, and I actually believe he is, because the difference between Mark Rowley and Cressida Dick is that Mark Rowley is actually saying, we failed. You know, what we've done is terrible. And he's actually acknowledging that. And one of the things I particularly like is the fact that he's acknowledged that leadership needs to change. Change comes not with reviews. It doesn't come with kind of denial. It comes with actually tackling the real issue, which is leadership, making safe spaces for colleagues to come forward, because that will stamp out. So that's what needs to be done.
Policing by consent at the moment, women and men, because young men get attacked quite regularly, certainly in London as well.
So it's everybody's confidence that's shattered.
Right, OK, well, thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate that, even though it's not exactly joyful listening on a Friday night, is it? Right, coming up, politicians trying to be celebrities making political points. What is going on? Next, I'm talking Matt Hancock and Rod Stewart. Not two names I'd have put together, but that's where we are. So back after this very short break. Please join us after that.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. On Mark Dolan Tonight from 8, we kick off with clips of the week, the highs and lows of 7 days on GB News. In the big question, is the COVID-19 vaccine responsible for excess deaths? My Mark Meets guest is legendary historian Dr. David Starkey. And in my big opinion monologue, why has Britain become a soft touch when it comes to drugs? It's time to just say no. Plus my all-star panel and tomorrow's papers. We're live from 8 till 11.
Hiya, welcome back to Friday Fun on GB News. Right, now, if you're a politician, the next logical step when your career comes to an end is to do celebrity rounds, of course. And similarly, if your music or sports career comes to an end, it seems politics is your next stop. Matt Hancock, I'm sorry, I don't want to use his name either, but Matt Hancock braved his time in the jungle, crowing about how he would be donating his fee to a hospice and raise awareness of dyslexia. Well, he came through a whole, checking my notes, 3% has been donated. Marvellous, well done, Matt. Meanwhile, Rod Stewart is urging the Tories to give Labour a chance. But should they be staying out of each other's lanes? Now, joining me, absolutely thrilled to say, great guest on a Friday night, is Neil Fox, presenter, DJ, all-round wonderful person, knows a lot about music and actually knows Sir Rod Stewart personally. So let's start on the Rod Stewart story. And so basically, Rod Stewart phoned up a live TV show this week, and as a lifelong Tory, said, time for the Tories to go, give Labour a chance. Now, What do you think about what he did?
Well, to be fair, the big story that came out of why he called up the news channel was because there was a story about people not being able to get X-rays and scans. And he had gone to have a private one, and he had walked in, and, of course, it was completely empty. So he said, I'd like to donate some money and try and help some people go and get some scans. And I think he hasn't done that for political reasons. He's done it just because he's a nice bloke. Genuinely thinking, look, I've got money, I can help, OK? So I think that's very nice. I think it's interesting. We were watching a film last night, my wife and I, The Crown, which goes back to that time when Princess Diana died and Blair had just been elected. And you sort of go back to, it feels a little bit like we are sort of at those times again, when however much of a Tory voter you may be, you kind of go, oh, my God, this is just going so badly wrong now. They seem to have lost the plot. Maybe it's time to have something different, whatever that may be. Now, I think there was a very different choice maybe in 1997, because Blair seemed to be offering something fresh and new. I'm not sure what we've got that's fresh and new being offered right now, so different times. I don't think Rod's really being very political here, and he's certainly not at the end of his career, I have to say. Even though he's 78.
No, I actually don't think he is. I think he's amazing, and I think
a lovely thing to do.
Yeah, and Penny Lancaster does an amazing job working as a support officer, doesn't she?
Yep, she does.
Actually does pound the beat. But I mean, it's very unusual. I mean, obviously, look, rock and roll music or pop music has always been linked to politics, hasn't it?
It has.
I mean, it's part of. They go together. I mean,
well, they do look great. You know, if you think of Bono, what he's campaigned against, but go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, whether it's against racial problems or war. You think of, Edwin Starr or Bob Dylan or Sam Cooke, and A Change Is Going to Come. They've always been great protest songs. So people have always got involved politically because they're human beings and they see what's going on and they might not like it and they write a song and sing about it. People sometimes get funny saying they should keep their noses out of it, but I mean, they are human beings. They live in the same world. They have brains. They have feelings. They are allowed to, surely, in a free world, say what they like.
Because that's some of the criticism that Rod has faced. It's like, well, even though what he offered was very kind, he's willing to pay for scans for people, because that's what he was doing for, I believe, a cancer checkup. He's been generous, but some people have said, look, keep your nose out of it, mate. None of your business. Especially saying something so sort of like straight as get rid of the Tories, let's get Labour in.
But why is that so wrong, that someone who is Sir Rod Stewart, he's 78 years of age this month, he has a view about it. There are a lot of people talking about this in the pubs, on TV shows or at work, just going, my God, what are they doing in government at the moment? They seem to be getting so many things wrong. Maybe we need a change. He's not really saying anything that lots of other people maybe aren't talking about in every paper every day or on every TV channel.
Yeah.
So he's just being a normal human being, just going, maybe it's time for a change.
And you do know Rod, don't you? You've met him a couple of times. So go on, tell me the story about.
Many times, but I have to say, I've never been more drunk in my life than with Rod Stewart. Him and his team got me hook, line and sinker in a drinking game, and I've never been so drunk, and I've never touched grappa again in my life. Evil stuff, but very funny man and a lovely man, and and a generous man too, genuine guy.
Yeah. Talking of which, shall we talk about Matt Hancock briefly as well then? Who managed to spend 3 weeks in the jungle to promote dyslexia, and I think mentioned it about 3 times.
Yeah, I don't know whether someone reminded him. He wasn't talking about it very much. I think he'd just come to the end and thought, let's go in, cash in. I don't think he came across. I'm amazed he lasted as long as he did, maybe, but that's maybe because people are slightly sick and brilliant going, let's make him keep doing the challenges. But I don't know how, you said it was 3% of his 320 grand he's donated.
Yeah.
Well, look, 3% is better than no percent. There's nothing that said he had to donate all of it.
But he did sort of imply he did make a big deal, and he got paid pretty close to £400,000.
Maybe more than 3%, I've got to be honest. That's not going to read very well, is it?
No,
it's not.
So he should have given more.
And I don't think it's done him really any good, I have to be honest. I can't really see what he's going to be doing next. Is he going to be hosting a TV show? I'm not sure.
So out of the two of them, Neil, if you were going to...
Who gets my vote? Rod
yes,
Stewart every
exactly.
time. Thank you for a million reasons, but a genuine, decent, nice human being.
Yeah. Can you ever remember another rock star, pop star getting as directly involved, though, actually like phoning up, not even scheduled to be on, phoning up a live TV show and saying, get rid of the Tories?
But that's not why he phoned up.
No, I know, I get it, but I can't remember any. I get the song.
Actually, I have to say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure people have got involved before, and they've said they've actually said their views. They are allowed to have their views, and you know, many people they criticise rock stars though for saying, or actors for having political. The thing that really bugs me is when celebrities get involved in political things. For example, maybe like the environment, will tell everyone to be green, then they'll jump on their Learjet and fly home. So that's the hypocrisy normally gets up people's noses.
Yes.
People having a view doesn't tend to irritate people as much.
And I do have to mention that for balance here, that some of the criticism aimed at Rod is like, is this the same Rod Stewart that actually, when taxes were very high in this country, up sticks and went to America to avoid paying the super high taxes? There is a little bit of hypocrisy there, maybe?
I think it's just a lot more convenient to live in America, and I bet they get nailed on tax in the States too.
Yeah.
They do.
Okay.
I'm not defending
You're
him.
angling for another drinking session with him, aren't you?
I'm not his tax lawyer, but I'll always drink with Rod Stewart.
Right, OK, next time, Rod, just give us an invite as well. I'd like to discuss this further with you, obviously, but not necessarily with Grappa. Thank you very much, because I'm going to ask you very soon, what do you do with your bananas? OK, right, coming up, where should you keep your bananas or indeed your eggs? And what about your nuts? I didn't ask you about your nuts. I really didn't ask you about your nuts. Find out after the break. Coming up, Neil's Nuts.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's Friday night. We're having some fun. Right, I brought Benjamin and Neil back into the studio. Actually, Neil never went anywhere because we were talking about his nuts. Anyway, and we're joined by nutritionist and food safety expert Monica Price. That's why I'm mentioning nuts. Now, the age-old argument of where do you keep your sauce rages on, and Monica is here with some expert advice on where do you keep your eggs, nuts, bananas, and cucumbers. Who wrote cucumbers in there? Come on, may as well done aubergine. Anyways, Monica, so tell us about food. We're going to have a fun quiz with this, but why are we doing this fun quiz for a start?
Yes.
Apart from I could make rude comments about bananas and that.
Well, the reason why is because lots of people think about where their food goes and they don't realise that some items need to go in the fridge and some items need to just go in the cupboard. So I thought we'd put together a little quiz to test your skills on where the food should go.
Right,
no
okay.
picking.
Yeah,
no picking.
fire away.
Okay, right. So, eggs. Now, where do you think they should go? In the fridge or in the cupboard?
Definitely in the cupboard.
In the cupboard?
Yeah, but I think it's bad to put them in the fridge.
OK.
And I was going to say cupboard because I read that in the news this week. Someone got scolded for putting it in the fridge.
Cheating.
Well, I'm sorry, I read the papers.
Girly swat.
What would you say then, Dawn?
I don't do eggs.
I
don't know. Fridge.
I will tell you. The experts say cupboard. You're absolutely right.
Oh.
Okay. And because we buy eggs, don't we? And the eggs are just in the supermarket on the shelves. And then when we get them home, we automatically put them into our fridge.
Right.
But actually, they're better if you keep them at room temperature. And the reason is because when you're cooking as well, like lots of celebrity chefs, I think James Martin said that he only uses eggs that are kept at room temperature, because when you're cooking, when you're baking, they're actually it's just better.
Just go to a
I mean,
restaurant.
I'm just jealous of anyone that can afford it.
That's right.
At the moment.
Right, next.
Moving on.
As you've got bananas, should we go for bananas? OK, bananas. Right, so bananas. Now, bananas, what do you think? Should they remain in your cupboard or should they go in your fridge?
I'll say leave them out. It should be in the cupboard. Yeah, not fridge.
I've never put them in the fridge, but I'm just going to go with fridge because maybe logically we're swapping answers.
No, it's actually cupboard again. Okay. Now, again, just leave them out on the side. And the reason why is because you've got this lovely banana here.
Monica, under no one's description is that a lovely banana.
Well, you see, the reason why... Now, pass me that lovely banana, Dawn. Now, the reason why this has gone brown is because bananas are really good. If you're looking for anything to ripen, put the banana next to the fruit or vegetable that you need to ripen, because it's already released an enzyme, which is why it's going brown. So if you put them in the fridge, bananas don't like cold. So by keeping them at room temperature, and especially if you put them next to other fruit, then they're going to ripen that fruit. But that's why bananas also should be kept by themselves.
I keep mine on top of my fridge.
Yeah, well, oh, do you? Well, there we are, you see.
I seriously wondered where we were going with that. What's next?
Right, OK, I think nuts. As nuts have come up...
This is what does Neil do with his nuts?
OK, what would you do with your nuts, Neil?
OK, well, thanks for asking. It's a lovely family quiz. I don't keep my nuts in the fridge.
OK, what would you say?
I don't eat nuts.
Oh, OK.
I tried to go vegan, so that meant eating a lot of nuts, but I don't have them at home.
OK.
So, but if I was guessing, cupboard?
Yeah, you see, now most people think cupboard, but actually it's fridge.
Look, you know,
it's fridge. Now, the reason why is because they can be stored in the fridge, of course, you can, because don't forget, fridges are a method of preservation, so they keep things lasting longer. But, however, the flavour and the way the nut grows, again, it likes warmth, so it's better just out.
Look,
it's just...
Get your nuts out.
Get your nuts out. Get your nuts out for the lads.
Right, OK. Are we finishing on that one, Dawn?
Yes, we're finishing, because I keep this in the fridge, by the way, and obviously I'm having it now because it's Friday. Right, OK, right, coming from one nut to another, it's a very, very lovely Mark Dolan. And what's coming up on the show? Mark Dolan.
Dawn Neeson will try to have a nutty 3 hours. It's Mark Dolan tonight, right through until 11. We've got the papers, my big opinion monologue, my take at 10, my all-star panel and much more. But first, clips of the week. See you shortly.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend and we'll see you all next week. Enjoy. Cheers, folks.
Good evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. The weekend is upon us and most of us won't see any rain. We won't see a huge amount of sunshine either. Often it'll be fairly cloudy. A milder day on Sunday compared to Saturday. but it'll also be a little windier by then as well. This area of high pressure is kind of controlling our weather, but from a distance, allowing weather fronts to topple in around the top at times. And this one is bringing some wet weather to western Scotland at the moment. That weather front is fizzling out as it sinks southwards, but nevertheless bringing some light rain and drizzle to southern Scotland and Northern Ireland by dawn. Most of England and Wales dry, and in the south, some frost where we keep clear skies, and some thick fog patches as well. Likely to be pretty dense for Saturday morning. Temperatures down below freezing here, even in towns and cities, and some rural spots could be well below. Not as cold further north, because we've got more cloud. A grey start to the weekend, a little bit of light rain over the far north of England. And through the day, we could see some light rain and drizzle at times for northwest England and the north coast of Wales. But elsewhere, most places dry. Quite cloudy, some brightness in the southeast. Certainly some sunny spells developing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. 6, 7, 8 degrees Celsius. So generally a touch colder than today.